Everyone thinks podcasting is easy, but it can be very complicated. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the podcast production process, lane by lane, so you could understand it better, whether you're a novice, whether you're a beginner, or whether you are thinking about podcasting. So let's get into it. What's up, everyone? If you don't know me, my name is Cardona. I'm a podcast producer. Our team produces some of the world's top podcasts. I'm also a podcaster. And all I want to do is just really help you understand some of this podcasting world a little bit better. And our goal is to just give you as much information as we possibly can without making this so formal and sticky or whatever it is. We just want to make sure you have takeaways that you feel comfortable and you can proceed with improving your pod or just starting it because starting it is a pain. Which brings me to the first part of the process, which might not be the process to you, but it is to me, and that's ideation. If you have not seen, we've made videos leading up to a podcast my wife and I do called Cape Fear Calling, and I walk through like how we came up with it. And you're probably gonna be shocked at how simple it is because it's just a pros and cons list. Like, is this worth my time? Do I have the help I need? The title, by the way, cover art, it's insignificant. Like, you just need to know why you wanna do the podcast. And the pros and cons are gonna be personal to you and different for everybody. So that's the first thing you need to know. Like, are you doing a podcast because you wanna get ranked and you want a book deal because you're a ranked podcaster? Are you doing it because you feel like you have a big existing audience and that they could get to know you more personally through a podcast? Are you doing it because you just don't like being in front of a camera and you want to practice your public speaking skills without an actual audience of 100 people in front of you? It's going to vary from person to person, but ideation is pretty much always the first step. Now, before we continue on, I actually want to talk about the gear I'm using and the help I have right now. I actually filmed this 2 days ago, and I was out of focus, and it's because I was going to this camera, going to do this, and it was such a pain. So I want to actually talk to you before we even proceed on the next part of the production process. I want to talk about the gear because we are about progress over perfection, and by progress, I mean speed. Like, let's just get the freaking content out, okay? Like, it's not going to be perfect. Your favorite podcaster, your favorite YouTube, go to their first 50 videos, and you're probably going to be unimpressed. And they're probably gonna laugh at it and they're gonna love it, and they leave those up for posterity because it shows how long of a way you've come. So that's why I wanted to kind of explain this to you. Even though I've done a lot of this before, was having difficulty managing what I had to do, cameras, recording time, is my mic sound good, all the little things. And you know what that does when you're doing this or a podcast? It distracts you from what you're actually trying to do, which is talk to the freaking audience. So you don't want to have those problems. So instead of trying to do this myself again, Joe is here with me, who does our video for Cape Fear Calling, our podcast locally here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I'm like, dude, can you come over? So that's number one. Before I get to the gear, the most important piece of gear is someone to help you. Whether it's your son, whether it's your daughter, whether it's your wife, whether it's your ex-wife, I don't know, get someone to help you do this. You need help or else you're not gonna be focused on delivering the message. So that's the first thing I wanna lead with. The gear we are using today, I just want to be transparent so you guys kind of know what's going on. I got a GoPro right here doing a time lapse, so I could post that time lapse and probably make it into a reel and say something like filming day or something like that. So I got that. I think BTS, behind the scenes content, is pretty valuable content so people could see you doing the work. In front of me, I have a Manfrotto tripod with a plate that is coming apart, but I'm still using it. And then we have a lavalier mic, okay? I don't have my podcast mic. I'm not in my office because I don't want to sit in my office. I want to use my home because my home is where I work, and it was recommended to me by Gary Vee's team back in like 2019. It's pretty expensive, so it's about 800 bucks. I'm not an affiliate or anything. I'm just telling you what's what. The DJI mic, portable mics, we got those as well, and I have not yet to use them, but that looks like it's going to be a really, really good option for a lot of people, and it's about half the price. I got Dr. Dre in the background. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm using a Canon EOS R6 Mark II. In English, that just means it's a nice camera. But the reason I upgraded was because this camera doesn't have a 30-minute recording limit like the camera that I was using. So that's the reason I'm using a EOS R6 Mark II. And I got another one right there because I wanted to get a multicam sequence. You know, instead of trying to get creative with a just straight on video and all the graphics and the punching in and punching out and transitions, one easy transition is going from camera to camera. Okay, so literally like one camera and all the different things you could do to spice it up, you double that with another camera. So that's why we have another camera. Joe's got this massive tripod that he was just telling me he got for free when he was on a mission trip in Appalachia, West Virginia. But he's got another tripod there. And as far as other gear, the only other thing that's going on, Joe's got some headphones on so he could monitor the audio, and he's got the screens out so he could look and make sure I'm in focus all the time so it doesn't get screwed up like when I tried to do it myself. If you can't find the help, you will learn the lessons the hard way, but I'm sure you're gonna be creative enough. As a business owner, I just don't want to take the time to freaking just try and figure it out myself if I know I can get the help that I need. So that is that. Now, if any of this has been valuable so far, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and hit the button so that way you get notified. I'm going to take you on a podcasting journey as long as I possibly can. And I'll also probably incorporate business and personal life lessons in this. So if that doesn't sound good to you, see you later. It was a good ride. If it does sound good to you, let's move on to the next part of the podcast production process. That is pre-production. Now, pre-production, you could consider ideation part of it. Ideation is the concept of the podcast, but ideation in pre-production, I would say, is episode ideation. And the easiest way to determine if you should have a podcast or not, which I've spoken about many times, is in this particular subject, how many different things can I talk about? If you're a photographer, you can make literally a series on ISO, you can make a series on shutter speed, you can make a series on moving shots, sports photography, I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're talking about cooking, you can make an entire series on spices and frying and baking and this and that and silverware. I mean, all the nonsense. So whatever your area of expertise is, just think of all the things you could talk about without any effort. And you're probably gonna come up with 20, 25, 50 episodes. We had clients who came up with 103 episodes over a weekend once. And I was like, damn, just look, like you have it in you. And as long as you know that, that's part of the pre-production process. And just kind of looking at the sequence, you probably want someone like us or a team like ours to kind of help you do this. But if you want to do DIY and do this yourself, just look at the sequence of these things and just make sure they make sense. And also, that doesn't mean you don't have the freedom to make a on-the-fly episode if there's big news in your industry and you want to make a YouTube video or a podcast about that. So that's episode ideation in terms of pre-production. Actual pre-production is this. Like, when are we filming? What gear do we need? Who's gonna be there? Are the admin folders set up for this? Like, do I have an editor who's gonna do this? Do I have an audio engineer who's gonna do the sound? Am I doing this all myself? What tools am I going to use? These are all the things pre-production. Production is a fancy word for recording. Pre-production is just getting all your ducks in a row. It's staying ready so you don't have to get ready. It means having a checklist. It means knowing the materials. It means knowing the gear. It means knowing what you're going to talk about. And we just had a call with a great client this morning who was having a little bit of stage fright. They were scripting everything and I'm like, dude, if you look at the script, after you've said one part of the script, you're gonna like have trouble to find where you were and you're just gonna deliver like this. You are going to secretly be trying to make sure you're on point and staying on point with your audience, and you know what? It ain't gonna work. So we really recommend 3 main parts of a podcast. Like, let's just say you're gonna talk about 3 areas of podcasting: ideation, pre-production, and production. I'm gonna have bullet points for each, 1 or 2 word bullet points in the sequence I wanna talk about them. And then that's that. So that's pre-production. If you happen to be doing an interview podcast, there's literally no amount of time you can overspend preparing for a guest. That being said, a lot of people don't do shit. Okay, like here's the reality. A lot of people are like, I'm glad I got this guest. I'm really excited about this guest. I have a ton of questions and I'm just gonna go right into this podcast without warming up. The best thing a podcast guest can say to you when you're interviewing them is, no one's ever asked me that before. That's when you know you've done the real work. That is also part of the pre-production process, is research on the guest if you're having a guest. 30,000 foot view stuff on pre-production so far. I'm gonna get into production. I may have forgot something, totally possible. I'm everywhere. If I did, leave me a comment. Tell me you didn't cover this, or say, what about this? Or DM me at richcardona_ on Instagram and we'll get it situated. Let's move on to production. Production is this. It's exactly what's happening right now. It is talking to the camera, pausing when I mess up, picking up where I left off. It is the physical and actual recording of the content and the podcast that you want to talk about. Now, we talked about the episode ideation and how the flow should go, but here's what you really need to know more than anything in terms of recording, okay? Just make sure the camera's working and that it's filming you. Make sure that the sound is not blown out, that you've done a sound check, okay? Make sure that you don't have food in your teeth, and make sure whatever it is, that your background doesn't have anything super distracting. This is pretty distracting, but I don't care. Just think about all these things. Now, the physical recording, the most important part, I was trying to allude to it. The most important part is that anything that you're recording doesn't have to be published. Period. You can mess up as much as you want. That's the whole beauty. This is not live. I'm not at Madison Square Garden giving a keynote. I'm not, at the Boys and Girls Club trying to motivate people. I am talking to a camera, which means at any time I can be like, Joe, cut. This is awful. Let's do that all over again. And Joe probably loses his mind. Just think about it. You don't have to publish anything, which means you can deliver at a cadence which reduces your ums and ahs. You can deliver at a cadence that feels comfortable, that captures your ideas, that makes sure it's fluid, that makes sure you are not in a hurry. That speed is important, but you're not hurrying, you're not rushing. You are trying to get your point across. That is a physical recording. It is the perfect mechanism to get your audience to fall in love with you and for your audience to get to know you on a different level than the 60-second TikToks you've been making. While they're entertaining, it does not make them feel close to you, it just entertained them. This is your opportunity to make long-form content that is gonna be sticky, that your audience is gonna reference when they meet you in person. They're gonna say, Dr. Dre, The Chronic was one of my favorite albums too. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they'll refer to this video potentially. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. This is what takes you from a personality to a person. So that is the production process. The post-production process is probably where you're gonna be like, I don't think I want to do that again. Post-production process means taking out an SD card, making sure the files aren't massive so that way we can upload them. It means labeling the files correctly. It means previewing the files to determine if anything went wrong or if you were out of focus after all, or if Joe was out to lunch and not paying attention. It means making sure the video editor knows that they have an assignment waiting for them. It means the audio editor knowing they have an assignment. It's all these things. It is the edits. It is how long was this video? Like, I didn't want it to be that long. What can we cut out? Where did I ramble? It is looking at the transcript and determining this might make a good blog or this might make a good thread. All these different things go into post-production. It is paramount to video podcasting that you understand this is a content repurposing game and it is a drawing your audience in game. We've had a couple issues with people who wanted these absolutely banger video podcasts, the way they were edited on YouTube. I'm like, look at the best people out there who have video podcasts and tell me how flashy their videos are. We are about substance over production. So I always ask people, what do these people know that we don't? Oh, I wanna have this absolutely crazy, amazingly edited video and I want it my way and all this other stuff. Like, tell me, please, what does Joe Rogan know that I don't? What does Patrick Bet-David know that I don't? Like, why are they keeping it simple? Why does Rich Roll just have 2 angles? And I mean, like, he fills up the camera and that's it. I don't think I've ever seen anything on his. If you get more comfortable understanding that the material in the podcast and in the YouTube video itself is more important than the production will come because eventually you're gonna start making enough money to be like, if you want that banger video, you could do it every time. So that is a post-production process. Again, if I left anything out, email me, DM me at @richcardona_, send me a thread, I don't care. I would love to help you. I would love to make sure that I capitalize on any questions that you may have by answering them for you. Lastly, we're gonna talk about distribution. And distribution is, okay, what am I gonna do with all this stuff? Podcast hosting platform is your answer for that. You're gonna strip the audio from the video and you're gonna upload that. You're gonna make sure it's edited and you're gonna make sure it's on as many platforms as possible. And when it comes to the long form content, you're gonna edit that. You're gonna put it on YouTube. You're gonna title it appropriately. And then you're gonna say, well, how many pieces of short form content can I get from this? Now here's one word of advice when it comes to short form content. If I take this long form video and I make 20 clips out of it, that's probably not a good idea. And the reason is I'm gonna be wearing this shirt and we don't need 20 videos of me in the same thing every day of the week trying to promote this podcast because people are gonna assume that they saw that clip already or they're just gonna get turned off by the fact that you're pumping it out so much. Can you make 20 clips? Yes. So that way you have a backlog of filler content when you go on your 2-week safari in Africa. When you know you're not gonna have time to make content, then all these extra clips may come into play, but you don't need to worry about that right now. So all that being said, that is the distribution process. I oversimplified it, but guess what? If you don't wanna be doing that, probably need to outsource that too. Do you want to be managing the Facebook comments? Do you want to know what LinkedIn DMs came from this? Do you want to know how many people inquired about your newsletter or about your product or service after this? It could be you, it could be not. or it could be someone else. The only thing I failed to mention in this entire thing is that you can also do this virtually. You can do a podcast on Zoom and save yourself a lot of the trouble. You can do this on Riverside, you can do it on Boomcaster. That's going to give you separate files for audio, that's going to give you separate files for video. It is an insanely simpler process, but I'd rather you understand the larger, crazier process that can bring you prosperity, but also know that you can do it in a simpler way as well. None of the steps differ in reality when it comes to all that stuff. You're still on Riverside for recording. You still need to do a tech check. You still need to make sure the input is the right mic. You still need to make sure the input is the right video camera, or not the computer video and actually an external camera, things of that nature. So we've covered ideation, we covered pre-production, we covered production and post-production, and we covered distribution. I don't think I'm thinking about anything else except potentially, which is not part of the production process, but just measuring your analytics, obviously. What you don't measure doesn't get improved. So I will leave you with that. Hopefully this is of value to you. I kept it very 30,000 foot view on purpose, but we are here for you if you need any more help in the podcast kind of workflow or the breakdown of the production processes. And just hit us up next time. Go ahead and leave me a comment, as I'm getting back into the YouTube game and I want to know how we're doing. Thanks.